Welcome back to my channel. I'm Kassiah. This is SiahSwag, and we have a new tutorial today. We are going to sew up this adorable handbag. This is called the Rachel handbag. It is from Sincerely Jen. It is her newest pattern. It comes in two sizes, so this is the smaller of the two. There's a handbag size and a tote size, and I'm in love with the handbag size. It is absolutely adorable. There are a couple of details on this bag that I will carry into other bags, and it is such a fun sew. You guys are gonna love this. On both of mine, I did all vinyl exterior. I did bonded nylon and luxe nylon for the inside pockets and linings, and Decaville light and woven for my interfacings, and heavy on the base. Okay, so here's the first one I did. Absolutely love it. This is Love Lola floral vinyl, and then the rest I think is Tulip Bee. You guys, do you see how adorable this bow is? I can't even think of all of the different bags I can take this and put on other bags. I absolutely love it. You can make it bigger, you can make it smaller. Love the bow detail. Okay, so you kind of can't see it, but behind the bow, there's actually a really big slip pocket. And on the back as well, right there. So that right off the bat is super cool. You've got front and back slip pockets. You don't have to add those if you don't want to. We've got these adorable handles. There are crossbody straps. Or not crossbody straps. There are D-rings for a crossbody strap right here on the top. It's got a zipper opening here. And inside, let's see if you can see this detail, because this zipper overlay pocket is super cool. You can see it as I sew it on the video. It's an overlay that includes a slip pocket and a zipper. It is so cool. I will definitely carry that into other bags as well. And then on the other side, you just have some slip pockets there. I don't know if the tote size comes with different features. I think it's the same thing except bigger. I even think this just a tiny bit smaller would be cute as well. All right, so that was my first one. I learned a lot on the first one. I did have to unpick. I had to redo a couple things. So take your time when you're making this bag, okay? Here is the one we make in the video today. I'm in love with it. If you're in love with it, it'll be for sale on my website. Okay, so I have the front and back slip pockets. Again, the vinyl, the printed vinyl is Love Lola. Everything else is Tulip Bee, except for the pockets on the inside is Wonderground. So a nice mix of everything. We've got the full closure on the top there. And inside we have that slip pocket. It's so hard to show you guys insides of bags on a video, but you'll see it as I make it. And then the slip pocket and zipper pocket right there. Absolutely love it. You guys, if you are on the fence about getting this pattern, do it. Do it. I had so much fun sewing this up. I did add an extra layer of foam in my seams on the base. I really like how that turned out, and heavy out of my seam allowance. I would do that every time. And then everything else has Decaville light out of the seam allowances and woven on the lighter pink vinyl, just because it's on the thin side and I want to be sure it doesn't rip or tear or anything like that. And it just made a beautiful bag. All right, guys, let me know if you guys have any comments or questions. I hope this tutorial is helpful for you all. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. That always helps me out. And let's start making this gorgeous bag. Okay, let's go over our pieces for this cute Rachel handbag. Again, I did a cutout for this on a live a couple days ago, so go check that out. I go over how I cut all the pieces and interface them. Okay, so to start, we have our base piece, our bottom panel, our base panel. I have one exterior. I did Decaville Heavy out of my seam allowances, and then I did a layer of foam. I kind of like the extra stability on the bottom. Personal preference, you don't have to do that. I did top stitch that Decaville Heavy on and then base the foam on that. So I have my exterior and my lining for that. I have my top panel pieces. Now I am doing vinyl for the inside lining top panel piece as well as the outside. So mine all are the same. I have 2 linings which don't have any interfacing on them. And then my 2 exterior, which do. I did Decaville Light out of all my seam allowances. And then on all the outside pink floral pieces, I did some woven interfacing just because it's a thinner vinyl. And I feel like it needs just a little bit extra when it's on the exterior. So those are those pieces. My exterior main, I have 2 of those. Again, woven and Decaville Light out of my seam allowances. For me, that's the sweet spot. My bottom accent pieces for the exterior, I have 2 of those. Again, this is the faux reel, so I do not have a layer of woven on the faux reel material, just Decaville Light. And then my accent stripe piece. On my first bag, I didn't put any Decaville Light on it. I'm going to try it with just a little bit. I did make sure it was plenty out of my seam allowances because you really do need that out of your seam allowances. And then I still need to add my little 3/4 by 3/4 square for the bow on the center of one of these. I just remembered that, so I'll be doing that before we start sewing this. I have my handle pieces. I'm doing a contrasting handle where the black is going to pop out a little bit more. So I cut my floral 1/4 inch smaller widthwise here than the black. So it just has a little pop when it's on your bag. Do it however you want. I have my zipper panel pieces. I have 2 exteriors, 2 linings. I have those prepped and ready to go. I did the fold evenly on all of the ends. And then I put 1 strip of double-sided tape on the right side of one side of all of them, all 4 of these pieces. It's just how I like to prep the zipper panel. My D-ring connectors, you don't have to do a crossbody strap. That is optional. I always figure it's better to have them than not. So I'm going to go ahead and put those on. I have Decaville Light down the middle, taped and ready to go for those. My exterior slip pocket pieces, so the front and the back of this bag have slip pockets. So you will need 4 total for those slip pocket pieces. Okay, I have 4 linings total for that. And they're nice and big sized. They're big slip pockets. And then I have my lining main panel pieces, 2 of those. I'm using bonded nylon. This is Tulip Bee Smoothie Smooth. That's what the black stripe is. This green is a Luxe nylon from Wonderground. It's so pretty. Such a pretty green. These are my slip pocket pieces. Here is my accent piece for that. One of the cool things about this bag that I feel like you could take into any other bag is this zipper overlay. It's a zipper and a slip pocket overlay all in one. It's super cool. Don't skip on this. It is a really neat part of the bag. That cutout, this is the 1 slip pocket piece you need for that. And then my 2 zipper pocket pieces, linings for that zipper overlay. For hardware and whatnot, you need some zipper tape. I have 2 3/4 inch D-rings for that crossbody strap. I have 2 zipper pulls. That's it. One on the top and one on the inside. I have a baggie of end caps. I just need one of them, or you could do just a tab. It's totally up to you. I'm going to do a zipper end cap. And I have some rivets for anything that needs riveted, and my nameplate. It's pretty light on the hardware. It doesn't have a ton of hardware, which is always a nice thing. And I'm going to go put that little piece of Decaville Heavy on my accent stripe for the bow. Oh, and the bow pieces, duh. I have my bow pieces here. So one of them is cut out and I just taped it onto the backing here. This is my other vinyl piece. And then we'll be sewing around that and then cutting it out. And then my center stripped for that bow, she does just, if it's a heavier, or I mean, if it's a lighter weight vinyl, to double it, make it two-sided. Mine is the faux real. It's nice and thick, so I only need one. Now we're done. That is all the pieces. All right, so let's start sewing this bag up. We are gonna do some prep work first. So let's start with our handle pieces. I have them all laid out right here. So the first thing I'm gonna do is fold all my edges to the center. Then I will put the two different layers together and we will sew those up. Okay, so there's my double-sided handles all done. I'm gonna put those aside. I'm just going to prep my D-ring connector, so I'm done with that. And that's out of the way. So I just fold my raw edges to the center, just like we did with the handles. And then I'll top stitch down both sides and based on my D-rings. Okay, there's those. The other thing that I want to prep right now is my zipper panel. I like to do it at the beginning and have it done with and out of the way so I don't have to worry about it later. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So we need to do our 90-degree turn on the zipper first. So I'm just going to take my little ruler here, a 1/2 inch down. I like to mark an even line on each side there. And then I'm going to fold it. I'm going to open up the zipper and I'm going to pinch it at that line. And I bring that pinch, that fold that it creates, it kind of pulls down the teeth and I place it right underneath the teeth. And that makes a nice even fold there. Okay, you want to do that on both sides, and then I'm going to baste just the edge of each side of this zipper. Beautiful. Now, there are different ways you can do this, so just use whatever method you like the most. Mine's very basic and old school, and it works great for me. But I know there's a lot of newer ways to do it, so just try them all out and figure out what you like best. Okay, so that's what it looks like when it's all done. I like to go ahead and just take my zipper apart. I have my zipper panel pieces here. We got 2 exterior and 2 lining. I have all of my edges folded. She gives you the measurement and the pattern. And then I have double-sided tape along the right side of one of each of these sides, okay? So I'm gonna take my first exterior piece and my zipper. I'm going to place it right where the fold ends is where I'm gonna start this, and it's right side down. So your right side's together with your exterior and your zipper. And you could always baste this instead of taping it down. That's your other option, okay? You don't have to use tape. It's just convenience. And then I'm going to take my lining and I'm going to sandwich that on top, right sides together. And I'm just lining up all of my edges here and taping that on. Okay. So now we have a zipper sandwich. I'm going to do that with these other 2 pieces here. Same. All right, and then I'm going to sew down the side where the zipper is between the 2 layers. Okay, right here, all the way down. Staying within your zipper panel pieces, don't go onto your zipper. Okay, that's what that looks like. Okay, so after you have those sewn, you're going to turn them right side out, wrong sides together, and you will top stitch and baste all of your layers. I like to clip them together just so I know they're pulled to where they need to be. Okay, like that. Okay, so when you're all done, that's what your zipper panel should look like. There's the front, there's the back. I'm going to go ahead and mark my center on the raw edge of these panels, and then I can set them aside for later when we assemble the lining. And now we don't have to worry about it later in the bag. Crossbody straps, handles, and zipper panels. Get those done first. All right, the last thing we have to do is our bow. So here's our bow pieces. For this, we're just top stitching down each side. This is the bow center. If you have thinner material and top stitching through one side just doesn't work, then double up your material. That is totally fine. Mine should be good to do with just the one layer. And really, you just need to make sure that the center section of this looks good because it's going to be pulled through and that's what's going to show on your bow, okay? All right, that's done. So for this, what we're doing is top stitching around both of these oblong circles, but we are not top stitching on these two edges here. Okay, those need to stay free and open. So if you need to pull through threads, then go ahead and do that if you don't want that back stitch showing. If you back stitch, so your bow is going to go like this and like this. So really, if you back stitch back here, it probably won't show, but we'll go ahead and just pull it through. Okay, so when you're done, that's what it's supposed to look like. I'm going to go ahead and tie these up back here, and then we'll cut this bow out. Okay, so with your bow facing up, you're going to cut off the tab on the top left side and the bottom right side. Okay. All right, just like that. I'm going to turn it over. I'm just going to get some tape here. Just helps for everything to stay in place. Okay, I'm going to bring this one over here, right there. And then the other one right on top. And then we're just going to do some basting stitches down the center so this stays put. Okay, just like that. There's our bow. And then that little centerpiece that we top stitched is going right around like that. Cute, right? Okay, so I'm just going to just stitch a little bit right there in the center. Nothing crazy, just enough for it to stay in place, okay? Make sure you stay within that little centerpiece because you don't want it going off onto anything else. It's like, seriously, 2 stitches turn, 2 stitches turn, a small, small box. Just like that. Beautiful. All right, so I'm going to set this cute little bow aside and we will head to the next step. Okay, so we're going to work on our main panel, front main panel. So I have my exterior main piece here, my accent stripe here, and my bottom accent here. Make sure you have them laying correctly. The bottom accent has a slight curve on the bottom. That's to be attached to your oval base. It needs to be straight edge to straight edge here. And then this has a slight, not too big, but it's wider at the bottom and more narrow at the top. Okay, so first we just want to piece these on. This is going to be my bow accent right here. So I have my Decaville Heavy fused on there, and I already cut my little lines for the bow to go through. They should be smaller than 3/4 inch, but no smaller than a half. Your little bow accent piece has to slide through those cuts. All right, go ahead and sew that on at your seam allowance. And then you want to do the same thing with this bottom base piece here, or bottom accent. Okay, we are only folding down and top stitching this bottom accent piece, not this top one. Do not do the top one. that's what it should look like right now. I do need to put I'm going to put my nameplate right there. I think I'm going to do that real quick before I attach my handle piece to this because it just might be easier. So I'm going to center and I am going to put my nameplate right there. Okay, so I put my nameplate on wherever you want. I just did it about 1.5 inches above this accent line. And then in the pattern, she gives you the measurements of your handle placement from the center out. So I went ahead and marked that. And now we need to, we're not top stitching this up yet. So don't worry about that. We are going to take our handle and we want to baste it onto this top edge here. I'm going to give it just like a tiny bit of an overlay here. By like 1/4 maybe of an inch. And baste it. Oops, there goes my ruler. Okay, and then make sure your handle isn't twisted. Bring it over and do the same thing on this side. I'm sorry, Oki. She's all, how rude. I'm not doing the little D-ring accent for the bag. I don't feel like it's needed for me. Okay, so we're going to put this aside. We're going to get out one of our top panel pieces and one of our slip pocket pieces. And I have my centers marked on everything before I begin. Okay, so with your top panel piece laying right side up, everything's the correct way. You're going to take that and your slip pocket, and you're going to put your slip pocket right side down. I'm going to go ahead and just tape, just easier to keep everything in place for me. I'm just going to tape this and place it down. Okay, pay attention when we go into this part with this slip pocket. Just pay attention to what the different seam allowances are because they change a tiny bit depending on what step you're on. So make sure you're watching that. Okay, because this is a smaller seam allowance than what we've been doing. And we are starting and stopping at our slip pocket piece. Okay, we're not going past that. I need a new bobbin. I hear it clinking in there. All right, just like that. And then you're going to take this piece and fold it down. And we're just going to top stitch right across this slip pocket piece. Only the slip pocket. All right, so that is what we were looking at now. All right, so we're going to put these two pieces together and we're going to do some markings. All right, so we're going to take this and this piece and we are going to put them together. So this top panel piece is going along this top part here. And you really want to be accurate with this, so just really pay attention. What I did in my first one was I wasn't as right on the money right here when I went to sew because the pocket's kind of in the way and you can't tell if you're hitting both layers. So if you want to, I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put a tiny piece of tape along there just so it doesn't move as I'm sewing. So we want to measure, we're only sewing 4.5 inches, okay? So pretty much right where your handle ends, like 1/4 of an inch past your handle. Okay. Beautiful. And then I'm going to do a piece of tape right here so it doesn't shift on me. This is the issue I had with my round 1. And then it just didn't line up exactly like I wanted it to. Okay. Do the same thing for right here. I'm just doing that 4.5 inches from the end to end. Okay. And then the other thing you can do, so now I need to mark it on this piece because that's the piece I'm sewing from. I'm just doing all the precautions this time because last time I was a little off and I had to unstitch and redo. So I want to make sure I know where my 3/8 inch seam allowance is on this piece. And I want to start and stop at that 4.5. So I'm going to draw that for my stop and start. And then this is my 3/8 inch seam allowance. If you just wing it, it might not turn out. That's what I did my first time around and I regretted it. Okay, so there's my 4.5. Here's my 3/8 inch. I'm going to do that again. Okay. Now let's put these pieces together. All right, that feels even. Okay, so that's what you should have. So your pocket is in between those 2 layers. So I'm going to start here and I'm going to sew down right there to that 4.5 and stop. Same with this piece. Okay, that looks really good on the back. I got it. You will need to kind of take your tape out now if you did tape that, just because this seam, we need it to lay flat. But the tape was fabulous in that my pieces didn't shift and I got a nice even seam allowance on that, which was my goal. So I'm just going to take that tape out. All right. And then we're going to fit our bow in our little opening. Okay. So I want to fit my bow in right there. I'm just going to do that real quick. I'm going to put the accent pieces in first here, or the middle piece in first, because it's kind of hard to put that in after the bow's in it. And then I'll just slide the bow in. So this part's a little tricky because you want this opening to be, oh no, my Decaville came off with it. That's okay. I have some light behind there, so I'm not too worried about that piece. Whoopsie. All right, you want these slits to be pretty dang snug, right? There we go. And then I'm just going to put my bow through. Okay, got my bow. Let's look. Ah, cute. So cute. All right, this next part's a little tricky. The way we want everything to lay. Okay, so it says to flip it over. We're gonna do it from this way. And we want both of these seam allowances here pressed open. Okay, so it's gonna take a hot second to get it all open. And then this one right here, so this seam allowance is going up, this bow accent piece is coming down. Just like that. So the most important thing is that you get that bow accent top stitch right in there. So I'm going to take a minute. I need to press some seam allowances open and tape. And then we'll do our top stitch that catches this bow center. And this is the part that it took me a second my first time around to kind of figure out. So hopefully this time around it's not as confusing. So I'm going to do some tape along here. And then I'm just going to flip this because I want to tape along this one too. And before I do anything else, I think I'll top stitch. So I'm going to take this and make sure it's laying down that way when I go to top stitch. You could always tape it if you wanted to. So what we're doing is we're top stitching along this bottom side of this black accent piece. All right, which you'll be able to get around your bow, but be sure that your seam allowance is up in that and that you catch that little bow accent tail, the center, the bow center tail. All right, let's do this. So the only thing that should be under what you're sewing right now is your seam allowance and then the tail for your bow. I'm just making sure that tail is right there in my seam. And I'm holding it with my fingers right here. Now I have a skinny foot and it barely gets by. So if you don't have a skinny foot, you may have to put on a zipper foot for this part to get across where your bow is at. All right, so I top stitched along this bottom side of this middle accent piece. And what the back looks like now, do you see the seam allowance was up towards the middle of that accent piece, and I caught the tail of my bow accent. That's what you want. Next step. Okay, so with our panel wrong side up still, you don't really need tape on this part. I have it there, but we don't really need it. All we really need to do is fold this bottom seam allowance down. It's kind of hard to see. I understand that. So your handle pieces will be coming down, and it flattens out the seam allowance here. And then you just really want to make sure it's folded nicely right here and even. Okay, so it's this bottom seam right here that your handles are attached to, which is also just the top of this accent piece here. Okay, so when that is taped down and pressed nicely, you're going to take your other slip pocket piece, still with everything laying just like this. This slip pocket piece is going to lay right side down along this seam that we just pressed down. So it's going to be placed right along that seam. And then we'll flip it over, and when we top stitch it, it'll catch that on there. And then both these come down, which is why I'm not going to tape the top part of this. I was going to at first, but I don't need to. Just make sure this seam doesn't get caught. This top seam here doesn't get caught in our top stitching of the next step, okay? So if you need to, grab your slip pocket piece that's attached and clip it up to the top. I did this on my last one and it helped. Just to keep it up and out of our way, okay? Just like that. And then I am gonna put some tape right along this seam that we folded here that the handles are attached to. Okay. I'm just laying it along the length of the slip pocket. Okay. And then I'll take that off, right side down, line that up along that edge. Just like that. Okay, so when I flip it over, I want everything to stay where it was. I don't want anything to move. And now I'm top stitching across this bottom black accent piece. And that is going to catch that slip pocket piece and sew that on. Make sure this top one is not under it in any way, because it has to flip back down. So make sure this one's pulled up out of the way. And that one's taped on nice. Mine shifted the first time I did this bag, and I had to go back and repick. So make sure everything's laying nice. And go slow over these handles. It tends to want to kind of push your foot and make your stitch line not so straight. So I go kind of slow over the handles. Make sure your bow's out of the way here. Again, just top stitching. That right there was probably the most difficult part for me to understand the first time. Once you get how all of that goes, you're like, oh, that's easy. All right, so that's what it looks like from the front. And that's what it looks like from the back. You see how I caught the slip pocket there? And now we can flip both of these pieces down. Okay. And then it makes your little slip pocket. Isn't that cool? So we're going to close up our slip pocket and then do the other side. Same thing, except we don't have the bow on the other side. Okay. I'm going to lift my exterior out of the way and close up my slip pocket. And you just go up as far as you can. Okay. Just like that. And then I'll do this other side as well. You can trim off the tails of your bow if you want. A little bit. All right, so there's the back. All sewn up. We can also trim this if we wanted to make sure it's not in our seam allowance. This tape really isn't necessary unless you want to make sure this stays open, which I think I will because of my thickness of my seam. That might be good. So I'm going to lay that flat like that. There we go. I love it. Okay, so there's your slip pocket. We're going to do the other panel, same exact steps, except no bow. Okay, so I'm not going to talk through this one. It's the second side. We're pretty much doing the same steps, but without the bow. Here we go. Okay, so we have both the front and back panel all pieced together. We are going to put these together now, right sides. And then I think the most important thing here is to make sure that your accent pieces line up with each other. So when the bag is looked at all the way around, it flows really nicely. Yeah, so I'm going to make sure that this piece right here matches. On my first one side didn't match perfectly and it kind of bugs me, but it's okay. That's okay. It just looks really good if those all line up. All right, and then this one down here, I'm going to make sure those are lined. Beautiful. And we're going to sew the sides together at our seam allowance, and we'll trim it down just a little bit as well. Okay, here we go. When I have vinyl exteriors like this, I like to do a second row of stitching right next to the first one to help with any stitches pulling when you turn the bag out. So I'm going to go ahead and do a second row of stitches right to the right, but I'm going to start down a little bit because I really want this seam up top to be able to lay flat. And then I'll stop about 1 inch away from the bottom as well, so that seam still lays flat. Not necessary on every bag, but I feel like it really does help add some strength to those seams. So I'll do the same thing on this side. And then I'll trim this seam down a little bit. I'm not going to trim the bottom or the top. Just a little bit in the middle here. Not a ton. Just trim it down to about 1/4 inch. And then after this is done, we are going to attach that base. Okay, make sure you have your centers marked on all of your pieces and your base as well here. And we are now going to fit that into our main exterior. All right, so I have my base here. She puts notches all along these curves on your base piece, which I've never done before. I usually put the notches in the exterior part. So I went ahead and did that. Let's see how that works. For bases like this, I like to do a couple rounds of sewing. So I'm going to match up all my centers first and get it all clipped in. I like to go around at a base stitch first and baste my layers together so they won't move. And then I go around and I will sew it the full seam allowance. And then I might even do a second round of stitches right next to that. So sometimes I do a total of 3 rows of stitching on my exterior base. It's kind of worth it. It's the exterior of your bag. You really want to make sure that it's going to be looking good. Take your time on it. All right, so let's just get this all clipped in there, and then we'll go from there. Right sides together. Yeah. It's fitting pretty perfectly for me. You should be good. I don't even think I needed those clips in the base, but maybe it helps after the fact. I'm not sure. Okay, so that's all clipped in there. I'm going to take this to my machine and we'll do those 3 rows of stitching. Again, you don't have to do that many, but it's kind of my tried and true method for sewing round oval-ish bases like this. So here we go. Okay, so some people like to sew with the base down on the table like this. Some people like to sew it up here like this. I find when it's down like this, I have more control of it not slipping, especially along my curves for me. So I'm going to at least baste it with the base down on the table. Again, this has to do with what you're comfortable with and what you're used to. So just do whatever feels right for you. Do that way. All right, so we are basting this outer right here. All right, I'm just gonna give it a nice look and make sure that we're connected all the way around. It looks good to me. Now again, whether you wanna go this way, totally up to you. I'm gonna take it at that full seam allowance now and go all the way around. All right. So it's looking good. No bumps, no puckers. I'm going to go one more time around real quick right next to that seam allowance. And then I'll trim it down to about 1/4. And we are done with the exterior. Okay, so I have that all sewn on. I'm going to trim it down just about 1/4 inch. So not a ton off, pretty much trimming off my basting stitches about that much. So I'll do that around the whole thing. And then we are ready to head to the exterior. You could turn this right side out now if you wanted to, because we are doing a a birthed bag. And I like to do it with my exterior right side out inside my lining. So I'll probably turn it out. All right, let's do it. Okay, so I turned my bag out just to give it a nice look, and I really like the base. It looks nice. I'm happy with it. I'm going to set my cute little exterior aside, and we will work on the lining. So we're gonna do the slip zipper pocket first. I have my lining piece here. Again, it has a direction. It's straight on the top edge, and then it's got a slight curve on the bottom edge. So make sure you know which way is which for that. Here is my overlay piece. And then here's my slip pocket for the overlay. I have my line marked down that she tells you to do in the pattern, and I'm folding that top straight raw edge down to meet that. Okay. I'm going to put another little row of tape there. Okay. I'm going to flip this over. This goes right below this bottom opening here. Okay, it's part of the slip pocket. And then we are going to top stitch that on. And it should be just out of all of the seam allowance here evenly. Okay, right there in the center. So from the front, it looks like that. What I'm going to do is top stitch, starting one stitch before the bottom of this box and going all the way across, and ending one stitch after. This is where if you really want it to look nice, you pull through those threads and tie. So I'll go ahead and do that for this part. All right, here we go. Okay, so here to here, it caught it on the back. That's what you want. And then I'm just going to pull through those stitches and tie them off. And then we will put this onto our lining piece and sew it on. All right, so now I want to place it. I have my markings already on this, down from the top and there. I think I'm going to put just a tiny bit of tape around here so it doesn't go anywhere on me. Right here at the bottom. And I have some on this right here already. So let's get that placed on there. I got my tape middle of this top zipper overlay on both sides. And I'm just going to fold it in half and get my center. You could also mark. Okay, so now I want to sew. The pattern has great instructions for where to sew. So we're starting where we left off here. We're going to come up the side, across, and we're going to go all the way down and around, come back up to here, across and down. Take it slow. Take your time. Make it look good. Or don't. I don't know. Whatever you want to do. I will go slow. All right, here we go. So we're starting in that corner right here where we left off. I'll probably, I'll pull through my stitches. And you kind of want to come one stitch above this right here. All right. And then come over. And then come down. I'm going the opposite way. I should have started on the other side. That's okay. I'll go slow. I'm just going to pull this through real quick so I'm not worried about it. Beautiful. All right, I'll tie those off, but I just want to show you. Okay, so I went all the way around and ended back here. So now this pocket works, right? That's your slip pocket. So now, after I tie those threads off, we're going to work on our zipper overlay, which is the exact way that you do every overlay. We'll sew around the outside of it first. We'll cut out the middle, and then we'll install our zipper lining pieces in our zipper. All right, let's go. You know, you can't really tell. This vinyl is so busy. You can't tell that I pulled through the stitches, so I'm just going to backstitch. I'm over it. You guys can see how to do it. Yeah. So I'm going to start right here at this stitch. Beautiful. I'm going to cut this out now. Okay, so now it's just zipper overlay time, and we will leave this zipper pocket open. I will do a double turn through. I'm going to leave my base open as well. So that's totally just personal preference. If your bag isn't heavily interfaced, you could probably easily fit it through this pocket. It's a nice big pocket, but mine's kind of thick. So I'm going to leave the base open too. All right, let's flip her over. I've got some double-sided tape on the right side on the top of each of these. Take that one off, and I'm laying it on the bottom part of the zipper here, facing up. Okay. So you should see your zipper panel facing up. I'm going to start one stitch before the under here of our box and end one stitch after, just like we did on this slip pocket. I'm just going to back stitch though. Okay, so that's what we have in the front. I like to flip this over. I'm going to put a piece of tape under here and fold it down so it stays out of my way. Get out of my way. And I'm going to take this pocket and we're putting it right side down on the top edge of our zipper. All right, now we're going to finish out that box. I'll start right here, come down, across, and end up here. Okay, so the only thing that's left to do on this pocket is close up our sides, not our bottom. We're going to leave that open. I am going to take some tape and just fold it up though. So when I sew up the sides, it's sewn folded up, and then it's just easier to close in the end for me. Okay, so now I'm just going to close up these sides. I like to do it from lining side up and just fold it out of the way so I can kind of see what I'm doing and I don't catch my lining in it. I'm going to go in at an angle here. I'll be trimming that down a little bit. And then a little closer right there. That'll just help that all fold in when we're all done. And then don't forget, if you cut any part of your zipper, to melt it again. Okay, same thing, other side. Okay, done with this pocket. Let's head to the other side of the lining. All right, so we're moving on to our slip pocket. Here are my slip pocket pieces. If you wanted to, you could probably cut this as one whole piece instead of sewing two pieces together. Because of the way it's being assembled, you just need a finished piece on the bottom. So we're gonna sew along this edge. Right sides together, wrong sides out. Here we go. Now, depending on your material, kind of got to press that. All right. And now I'm going to press this because we want that to be the bottom edge here of our pocket. Obviously, if you're using materials like cotton, you could give it a good press with your iron. I'm just going to finger press this. All right. And then I'm going to baste this top closed here, and we'll put on our trim piece on the top edge. I'm also want to put a tag in. Actually, let's go back a little bit. I think I want it. Let's go about right there. It says, I love you so much. So cute. All right, here's my trim piece. I have my center marked. I have tape on both sides. We're going to try to encase that top raw edge as evenly as we can. It's not always perfect. Do your best. All right, I go right below the line. Maybe not that far below. About right there. And then we'll fold it over and clip. All right, I'm gonna top stitch that on. Hopefully I catch both edges in my top stitch. If I don't, then I'll just do a second row of top stitching. Not a big deal. I did it. That's probably the most even trim I have done in a long time. All right, so I have my placement already on here. I can see it. I think I'm just gonna clip it onto the sides to keep it in place here. It should go all the way from edge to edge. If you don't want, if you're like, that's gonna be too much in my seams, you could always, you know, size down the slip pocket and make it so it's out of your seam allowances. Totally up to you. Okay, that's my placement. I'm gonna flip it over first and just baste it down my sides here because we'll have to trim it a little bit. Now, if you wanted your slip pockets to kind of pop out a little bit, you could always push this slip pocket in even with the sides and it would give it a little bit of extra wiggle room if you wanted that. Just an option. All right, so now we need to separate this pocket a little bit. She's got suggestions on measurements for this. So it's whatever you want to do. I'm going to do her pocket suggestions though. And you know, she marks this before you start sewing. So that's, I totally forgot. So that's okay. Again, it's a slip pocket. It's not the end of the world if it's not marked exactly like it is in the pattern. So I'm not going to stress about it. That looks pretty good to me. All right. So I'm going to start down here at the bottom. I'm going to come across. I'm going to go up and back down here, up, back down. Okay, that's how I'm going to sew this on. Let's do it. Okay, beautiful, beautiful. All right, so our linings, we need to finish these. I went ahead and basted my D-ring in the spot that she says to in the pattern. And you do it on the same side of each of these because then when they're put together, they'll be opposite. All right, so, and then I do have a little bit of an overhang on purpose. All right, there's that. Now we need to piece on our zipper, main zipper panel, and our top lining piece. So here is my main zipper panel. I want the one when it's right side up. The zipper that's turned, the side that's turned is on the same side of where my zipper pocket closes. I want my zippers to go the same direction. Okay, so we are going to center that on our lining right side up. Our zipper panel is right side up. Our lining is right side up. We're going to center and clip that on, and I'm just going to base that onto the top of my lining. And then we'll sandwich on this lining piece here. We're going to sandwich that right there. Okay, so baste this on first. Beautiful. Okay, so here's that top inside lining piece. That's my vinyl instead of my lining because I kind of want it to match the outside of my bag. I like the way that looks. Right side down, centered. We're going to sew that with our seam allowance all the way across. And then we will flip it all up and top stitch along our lining. All right, so you want to flip this top panel piece up and your zipper panel up. Okay, both of those are going up. So is your connector here, and then we'll be riveting this connector as well. All right, go ahead and top stitch this up. Okay, so that's one side. Okay. Ooh, looks good. I'll probably rivet these off camera, but just to show you, I will take a piece of Decaville too, because I feel like it needs a little extra on the back. And I'll punch a little hole in that. And then I'll take, clip this out of the way. I'm just going to put it like right there. I'll show you. Just to give it a little extra stability and support. If you do carry it as a crossbody, you really want to make sure it's not coming out. I'll probably rivet my handles as well. So on the back, I'm just putting a little extra piece of Decaville Heavy, okay? And then I put my cap on, and then I'll take that to my hand press, and I'll press that. All right, I'm going to do that on both linings. So that is an option. Okay, same thing. Right side's up, baste, add that top piece, and then flip it up and top stitch. Okay, I'm going to put on my rivet here off camera, and then we will finish assembling our lining. All right, we have our 2 lining pieces. We're going to put those right sides together and sew up the sides just like we did on our exterior. The only difference is that we want to increase our seam allowance. So we'll start off at the top at the normal bag seam allowance. And then about an inch down, we'll increase it. And then about an inch before we get to the bottom, we'll go back to that regular seam allowance. That just ensures that our lining isn't crazy baggy inside of our exterior of the bag. Most patterns have you do that unless they specifically made the lining to fit smaller. Some pattern writers do that, and so you don't have to worry about doing that increase in seam allowance. So just pay attention to whatever the pattern designer suggests. All right, here we go. So about right here, I'm going to start to increase. And about right here, I'll start to go back. Done. Okay. I will trim just where we increased down a little bit right here. I don't want that extra in our bag. Okay, and now I'm going to go to the other side. Same thing. Okay, all that's left to do is add the base on our lining for this lining part. You're pretty much doing the same thing, except your seam allowance, I'm pretty sure, is bigger this time. Bottom panel, Yep, you're using a bigger seam allowance on this bottom panel, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and just get it all fitted in just like we did with the exterior. I don't remember if I did a basting last time. I think I just went for it. I think on the lining, I just go for it. I don't do the whole basting stitch thing because it's just easier material. And I don't really need to baste first. But if you feel like you need to, go for it. I will be leaving a big side of my base open and unsewn because I'm actually going to pull the bag through the base and then close up that base through the zipper pocket and then close the zipper pocket. If you've been watching my channel a while, you know that's my favorite way to do a birthed bag because the bottom opening is usually a bigger opening for pulling your bag through, and then you can get it nice and finished through your pocket, so you don't have that weird seam on your lining. It's kind of hidden in your pocket. And for this one, I'm pretty sure, yeah, I did some snips on my lining, bottom of the lining, to get it to fit into my panel for this one. I just feel like it laid better in there. Yep. All right, we're gonna sew this on. All right, since I'm gonna leave a hole on this side here, I'm gonna start on this side of the hole. And I like to come in at a 90-degree angle. Again, not necessary, but I feel like I get better results with that and my bag knot. You know what? I'm doing this the opposite way that I usually do. All right, we'll try it this way. That was silly of me. I feel like when I do it this way, the lining part of my bag tends to slip underneath and I can't see it. So we'll see how I do here. Some people love to do it this way. It's kind of just however you learn and teach yourself is, you know, what you're best at. Remember to do that bigger seam allowance on this base. I can't do it this way. Nope. I can't. You can't teach this old dog new tricks. We're going this way. So I'm going to start right over here. Sorry about that, guys. Let's see. Yep. We'll start right over here. Okay, much better. So I left a nice big opening down here. Can you see? Left a nice big opening down here. Okay, so I'm going to trim the seam allowance where I sewed, but not where this hole is. And we are going to put our layers together. Okay, so I'm going to put my exterior into my lining. Totally up to you which way you want to do this. This is just my preference. I want my zipper pocket on the back of my bag, so I'm going to put back of the bag to the zipper pocket here. And I'm going to shove this bad boy in. Make sure my handles are down. I know all my centers are marked, so I'm good on that. And just start getting everything into place. So I like to line up my sides here first. Flatten out those seams. And then I'll just start clipping everything. Make sure your zipper panel is pushed down and out of the way. Do you see how it tends to want to stick up there? I'm going to make sure it's pushed down along with my handles too. All right. So if you do it this way with the exterior inside the lining, it's going to be a tight fit because your lining should be slightly smaller than your exterior. So you're going to have to kind of squish. The reason I like to do it this way is because then I only have to pull it once through my lining. If I did it with the other way around with my lining going into my exterior, I kind of have to pull it through twice. So you know, pick your battle. As long as your right sides are together, it doesn't matter which direction you do it, it'll work both ways. I don't need that piece there. All right. All right, I'm probably gonna finish this out on my cylinder arm. But if you're doing this on a flatbed, you're going to sew this from the inside of your bag all the way around, okay? I'm going to take this over to my cylinder arm and let's get this sewn up. I'm going to go ahead and do another round right next to this stitch to the right, just like I did on the exterior sides. Okay, I'm going to trim this top with my pinking shears, and then we will turn this right side out. I'm so excited. I'm going to give this a little hit of heat with my hair dryer. Okay, get that bag all turned out. Push the lining in. Just make sure everything is laying where you want it to, and we're going to top stitch. And I kind of have to push all of these curves up and out from the inside of the bag. Okay. So I'll kind of work this top seam here a little bit off camera. I'll just kind of roll it in between my fingers to get it to lay where I want it. I'll probably put a few clips on it. And then we'll go ahead and top stitch this and then close up all of our lining in our pocket. You see how you kind of have to work up this seam? Make sure it's all pushed out because you want those curves looking nice. These curves here. Love it, love it, love it. Okay, I'm just going to put some clips on and then we will top stitch. This looks really cute. I am digging it. Oh my goodness. Isn't that pretty? Yep. What a cute bag. All right, let's top stitch this. All right, here we go. Just pick a spot and go. I usually like to start like on the back side somewhere. Come here. All right, we are all top stitched. I am happy with it. It looks good. We're gonna go back to our other machine and finish sewing up the lining hole and the pocket. And then we'll do the zipper. All right, so we wanna open up our zipper pocket, pull that lining out. And then I'm gonna reach in here and pull out my bottom of the lining through this hole and close that up. And then I'm going to trim that down where we just sewed, and then push that back in and then sew up my pocket. That looks good. I'm not trying to show you, but it's hard because there's no light. Looks really good. Okay, so all that's left is the zipper. And if you wanted to rivet the handles, you could do that. I might, just so they stay up, I'm going to rivet them through all of these layers right here and here, probably like 1/4 inch from this accent piece on all 4 handles. I'll probably do that off camera. All right, let's get our zipper pull on and our end cap. Yay! I love this bag, you guys. I think you'll like it too. I'm going to trim that down just a little bit. I always leave it longer than necessary just in case. That's just how I am. All right, and then I am going to put a piece of tape along the back to fold it. Now, if you don't have end caps, you can just do a tab with some vinyl. Totally fine. You do you. All right. Fold it in thirds. Okay. And then slip. It's going to be a tight fit, so have patience. Make sure it's pushed all the way in there. Okay, and then just put the screw in. Easy. I love a zipper end cap. Done. Love it. Okay, so I am just going to rivet my handles on and we are done. Oh my goodness. I absolutely love this bag. Okay, I am all done. I have the rivets added to my handles. I actually really like that. This one, I didn't add them. I think I'm going to go back and add them. It just kind of gives them a little bit more stability. I think next time, even more, I will put boning in these handles so they just stay up no matter what. I absolutely love the design of this bag. You guys, go grab it. Go try it. This is the handbag size. There is a bigger tote size. I'm sure that one's fabulous as well. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this was helpful. Let me know if you have any comments or questions down below in the description. I will list everything that you saw in this video. Hopefully, if not, ask me where I got it. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already for more videos like this, and we'll see you next time. But guys, bye.